Hi there, this is Robbie Gringras. I'm sorry I can't be presenting live. I'll be with you live for questions. I'm just literally on my way from Israel to Baltimore as you hear me, not as I speak. I have various things on offer for this year. First of all, a bit of background about myself and what I have to offer. I'm British-born Israeli, as you can hear from the accent, and I live on the top of a hill in the Galilee area. And I sort of have three areas of expertise. One is I'm a playwright, a director, a performer of theatre. I've performed on London's West End and throughout the world, and I'll be coming to the States with a selection of solo shows. I'm also an Israel education lecturer and thought leader, and we'll go into that, the various workshops that I can offer for you, and lectures and keynotes. And finally, I'm about to come out with a book. I'm the co-writer of a book called Stories for the Sake of Argument, 24 stories designed to provoke an argument about Israel, and that book will actually be coming out on Amazon on Yom Ha'atzmaut itself, on Israeli Independence Day on May 5th. So let's dig into a little bit of the detail. My theatre background began back in the UK several years ago when I still had lots of hair, performing in a show on London's West End, very physical theatre show. This show performed all over the world. Since then, this was my adaptation of the novel by André Schwartzbart, again played on the West End and around the world, and several other shows until I left this company, Besh Tellers, back in '96, when I came to live in Israel. And in Israel, I began creating solo shows. Shabbos was a show which performed around the world some 300-400 times in English and in Hebrew about the battles between the religious and the secular in Israel. This is a show about the oranges, which got even more depressing. It was a show about a suicide bomber, a comedy, for some strange reason, performed at the Edinburgh Festival, in Vancouver, pretty much around the world again. And then I translated it into Hebrew with the help of Sha'anan Street, the lead lyricist from the band Hadag Nahash, and performed it around Israel as well. I also have a happy show, which I performed together with a fantastic musician, Adam Madil, called That's Why I'm Still Here. And those are stories that celebrate the complexities of life in Israel. And right now, I'm about to reignite the tour of a show which was new a couple of years ago, basically was beginning its premieres just before COVID began, called The Gate. And here's a little bit about The Gate. Once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a hill. And on this hill, there were two different communities, connected or separated by a narrow, winding road. Huge, iron, yellow, automatic gate, closing off the road between the village and the kibbutz, closing off the road between the Jewish Israelis and the Arab Israelis. Welcome. Private property, no entrance to strangers. Do we really need a gate?
Well, either have a security system or you don't.
Who has a gate against their next door neighbours?
You either hold the line or you don't. Thank God I can take a pee.
And at the edge of the big picture, down in the village, stands Amal.
And Amal was born to resist.
Smack into the gate, and then the reversing it again, and smack! Endless bickering about a gate. It was at the heart of everything. So that's the theatre stuff. As I say, in particular, The Gate is already on tour and available for bookings. I'll be performing it in Parkland in Florida in a couple of weeks' time. Then there's also my Israel education work. For 20 odd years, I've been working in the sphere of Israel education. In particular, I came out with an article some 20 years ago, I think, called Hugging and Wrestling with Israel, very much putting forward the idea that we need to find a way both to engage with Israel with critique and with affirmation and love of Israel, and that we need both of them, not one or the other. I do a lot of long-term work. I'm lead educator on a project with Moishe House, with Hillel, with BBYO. I've written curricula for the Hebrew charter schools. I run a 6-year project training teachers in New York in these kind of subjects. But just to run through, this is a page from my website, but just to run through a few of the options that are available. The O word is something that I present about the word occupation. There are at least 3 different uses of the word which mean 3 different things. And so if someone tells you there is or there isn't an occupation, it's a useful way of understanding where people are coming from. And it describes the situation so that we understand the sides, not necessarily to take one. And the lecture is specifically built so that you don't necessarily know what my perspective on the issue is, but you understand 3 very different perspectives on the word itself, occupation. By the way, I also run something called the A word nowadays about the use of the word apartheid with the same analytic approach. I also run a whole system of Israel education and Israel engagement called the 4 Hatikva questions. It's something that I developed while I was working in the Jewish Agency. This is a system which many different organizations now adopt, and it works really nicely as a keynote that shifts your appreciation of how to look at Israel. It also helps with mapping programming, for example, about Israel and more. I'm very big on Israeli music. I've created hundreds of cultural translations of Israeli songs. This is a presentation which I call Everything You Need to Know About Israel Through the Songs of Ehud Banai, but actually I can run the same for the songs of Dag Nachash, of Kobi Oz, of Eti Ankeri. There are many different Israeli artists. I could do Everything You Need to Know About Israel Through the Songs of X. And I also actually do a session which is called Israel in 5 Songs, and I can just give you an understanding of Israel through 5 contemporary songs, not necessarily songs from the last 50 years, but also songs from the last 5 years. Another thing that I offer is the Mizrahi thing in popular Israeli culture and society, working through Mizrahi popular arts, music, photography, poetry, TV, in order to tease out the place of Mizrahi Jews in Israel. So those are the keynotes, lectures and workshops. And the third thing that I have to offer is this book, which, as I say, is coming out on May 5th. It'll be available on Amazon, and you can also write to us before then for bulk copies if you're interested. Stories for the Sake of Argument, 24 short stories designed to get you arguing about some of the thorniest issues facing Israel and the Jewish world today. It's been received really well. There's going to be a whole organization for the sake of argument coming with the book where we're going to be running workshops and so on. But in the meantime, I and my co-author Abi Dauber Stern, we're open for book readings and workshops associated with the book. As you can see, lots of grown-ups like it. So that's what I have to offer. I look forward to answering questions. I'll get on the phone in just 1 second. And here you can see you can connect with my personal website and also the website of For the Sake of Argument. Speak to you soon.